Thank you.
Cheers.
Excellent. So as we move into the next session, we're going to speak about appointed parties in construction. I've met with these characters last week, and we're in for an absolute firecracker for a series of presentations. Some very, very good experience and some lots of knowledge. So we have with us today Andy Boutle from Kier, we have David O'Brien from Excite, and we have Georgina Quigley from Acb Group. And they cover a very broad variety of the construction sectors. So I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to kick it off. Andy, you've got 10 minutes, and I will interrupt you when you've got 2 minutes left. All yours, my friend.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ronan. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Yeah.
Wonderful. And hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep.
Brilliant. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to this session. Just really quick introduction before I get going. So for those who don't know me, I'm Andy Boutle. I'm currently head of BIM for Kier Construction in the UK. Also, I sit on the UK BIM Alliance's engagement co-lead, and I've been one of the co-authors that's been writing some of the guidance to ISO 19650 that's contained within the UK BIM framework. So what I want to talk about today is, and I think I saw some of our presenters earlier touched on the information management function. That's something that's quite close to my heart, and specifically I've written some of the guidance on that. So I'd like to dig into that a bit in the context of a lead appointed party and talk a bit more about that. So hopefully I've earned my stripes and I've got my battle scars on the way to my current position. You know, a number of years ago I have been a BIM coordinator, a regional BIM manager, so I do understand some of the pain points and the touch points that everyone on the call experiences day to day, and I still do to a point. So the information management function, fundamentally, what is it? Well, it encompasses the collective responsibility for carrying out the information management process across the project team, the full project team, as it's set out in ISO 19650 Part 2, and also it's notably this. We're coming at this from a lead appointed party angle, but it's exactly the same scenario in this context for Part 3 for operational phase. So the thing the ISO does is really encourage, you know, the very first thing that any party does, you know, when you start on a project in the process, is to understand your information management function and then assign out the various responsibilities and accountabilities for the activities that you're about to carry out. So, you know, really it's setting the scene and setting things up for a good information management process, which is why it's so important. I've just included down the bottom there that, you know, one of the clauses at 5.3.1 out of the ISO, and just to highlight, nominate individuals plural. So, you know, what it's trying to drive is it's not one person's responsibility, as it's often seen. Everyone has a responsibility to information management within the project team, and it's really important that we drive that consistently ahead. And again, this is something we generated under the guidance, and it's just another view of figure 3 in the ISO that really tracks out the all the various activities and clauses across the various parts of the process, and trying to just highlight out accountability, I guess. So the sort of the light cyan is client or appointing party accountability for all of those clauses. The blue is lead appointed party, and then the pink, purple is appointed parties. And of course, responsibility can be discharged and given to a third party, or even to downstream to a lead appointed or appointed party. But typically, I think best practice is that, you know, organisations start to gain this competence to deliver internally and manage all of this internally. So why do I like the information management function as it is in ISO 19650? So there's a BIM specialist. It's a BIM coordinator. She's really frustrated, and then thinking back into when we were working to BIM level 2 standards, that did really drive. It was trying to do the right thing, but it was driving people assuming roles like the project information manager, task information managers. But typically what happened is it all fell to the BIM specialist to just do anything regarding BIM and information management, which ends up incredibly frustrating and defeats kind of the purpose of what we're trying to do. So she's frustrated because the bid lead is saying, so the client wants BIM, can you just sort it out, please? And a design manager in the project team. Well, I'm kind of interested in this stuff, and it's useful looking at models as well as drawings, but don't expect me to do anything specific because it's not really my responsibility. It's BIM, it's yours. The planner, you want to do a bit of construction sequencing. The planner's very busy, so here's the program. Knock yourself out. Feel free to link it to the model. Go for it. The QS, quantity surveyor. So I've just placed an order with a subcontractor, but now you're telling me they need to do something on BIM. What do we need to do there? And then project manager. So we're approaching handover. Client PM's been twisting my ear about something called Kobe. What have we got to do on this? Can you help? So I mean, these are typical things I've heard in my career that you sort of bang your head against the wall against. And the point is, it's everyone's responsibility. Everyone plays a part, and we need the full team to work together and understand what it is we're trying to achieve. It's not one person's job. So just going back to the ISA. So on the left there, you can see Annex A, which is at the back of 19650 Part 2, which gives a kind of template for an information management assignment matrix, a useful resource and something that I could see clients picking up and just having a quick understanding of where the accountability lies and where they may want to get a third party involved or indeed discharge the lead appointed party. But something we did as part of developing the guidance to the UK BIM framework was to give examples of how you may go into a bit more detail and expand that to something that could be quite useful. So the diagram on the right gives an expanded version of how you might develop that. So across the top, you may, as a main contractor, for example, there's my disciplines across the top, the people across the project team, and then expanding out the main clauses and the tasks and subtasks under those clauses. Let's actually look at, the RACI or accountability responsibility across the individuals in the team. So as a starting point, we can see typically who's going to lean into these tasks and who needs to contribute. Also on the, just as a note, on the UK BIM framework website, under the resources section, we developed a template for that figure on the right in either Word, Excel or Airtable as hopefully a useful resource for people to go away and download and make it company specific and use it on your projects. I mean, I guess the other thing, this can be a bit of a forgotten step or clause in the process, because it's not actually something that you need to deliver. It's not a deliverable. It just suggests it's something you need to do. But I really heavily recommend it's something to focus on. Excuse me. And this is just an example of how we've developed an IM assignment matrix in Keir. So this is from our quality management system. Very similar to the example, funny enough, that I just gave as the diagram, but you can see our various project roles, disciplines across the top there. And again, I just snippy this section of it to show, and again, I'm under no disillusionment that responsibility and accountability, will be easily taken up by others in the team, but we're trying to push things this way. So for example, under establishing our exchange information requirements, we're typically asking the design manager to take a bit of responsibility and accountability there to help that along. As design management, they're effectively producing information requirements, but we're trying to link that with the information management and the BIM side of things, so it's a bit more of a seamless process. And then further down, as you can see there, establish the master information delivery plan. We're trying to get the project manager to take some responsibility and accountability there. It's not all landing on the BIM digital specialist.
Sorry, Andy, just two minutes there, my friend.
Okay, great. I haven't got much more. Just to quickly then touch on parties and teams. So again, figure from the guidance and in the ISO in itself, we're talking lead appointed parties here, specifically in construction. So we can see the figure there, and that the point of the relationship between the parties is it is supposed to be procurement agnostic. So depending on the procurement route, in terms of information management, there's always someone in the middle, a client, an appointing party who's appointing other parties to deliver information, who then have a supply chain effectively. Now, the bit I want to focus on here, this goes into a bit more detail, but again, obviously there's novations and all of these sort of things that happen on a D&B, design and build project. So, at any one point, someone could be a lead appointed party for a stage, and then they may then become an appointed party under another lead appointed party under the contractor. So focus is zooming in on that. and this is a common misconception that we often hear, and I completely get it as well. So, can there be? There's not always one lead appointed party. There can be, but there can also be multiple lead appointed parties, because what defines that is the relationship of being a tier one, so working directly for the client. So the example there, at any one stage in this example, there could be a client appointed architect, a client appointed project information manager, and a client appointed, of course, main contractor. So we're all lead appointed parties at the same stage. That can get a bit confusing, but when you think about the resources that you need to produce as part of the tender response and appointment phase, there's quite a lot to produce there, and you start to think, well, hold on a minute, a project manager, are they really going to produce a BIM execution plan, a mobilization plan, a risk register, etc.? Well, best practice probably would say they are. At the end of the day, you're generating information and exchanging it with the client, so you need a plan, and to plan out what that is and what it looks like, and does it follow the relevant standards that the client is asking for. But again, of course, it's proportional. So as an architect lead appointed party, or as a main contractor lead appointed party, those resources are going to be relatively detailed. As a cost consultant or a project manager, of course, they're going to probably be fairly light touches and proportional depending on scope. And you could also argue, if you've got no appointed parties under you, why would you be producing an exchange information requirement or even a detailed responsibility matrix? So there's some proportional, some sensible approach there, but there are multiple lead appointed parties, often at a number of different stages across the project. That hopefully is me done. Thank you, Ronan.
Excellent. Thank you, Andy. You're just about a minute over, so we'll take that as a good one. So moving swiftly on, we have David O'Brien from Excite, and David's going to speak to us about his experience of running information management and working with the contractors and construction industry and delivering projects at Excite. David, you have 10 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is David O'Brien from Excite. I was speaking during the BIM Coordinators Summit 2021. Had some technical difficulties you may have seen. I lost my sound and my presentation. So I just going to record it for you for anyone that's interested. We were talking about the appointed parties in the construction stage. So I'm going to take you through my slides. And as I said, my name is David O'Brien. I'm a BIM manager for Excite Northern Europe. I'm mainly responsible for the data center and life sciences projects that we conduct here, again, during design and construction phases. And today I'd like to share the simple things that I see that could maybe help you along your journey. Lots of people have talked about wonderful technical things here today. There's been some fantastic speakers. But I just want to bring it back a little bit and talk about some simple practical things that you can do that hopefully will help you along your journey. A little bit about Excite. Usually the projects that we undertake, we're a lead appointed party generally, either a lead designer or lead general contractor, and that means we've normally got lots of parties, lots of subcontractors or design partners that we need to coordinate and manage, and BIM is our central process for doing that. We focus a lot on the value that we can gain from it and that we can offer to our clients without overcomplicating things, trying to keep things simple. And that leads me to my first slide, which is really the key message here is the simpler the better. I know it's been mentioned earlier on in the conference, but I see so many projects striving for perfection, and lots of simple things being made really, really complicated by procedure and processes. The projects we execute here in Excite tend to be complicated in their nature anyway. We have large projects, complex process and utility systems. Adding more complexity to that with lots of BIM processes, especially if they're not well thought out and they're not useful, that doesn't help us. So I have a practical example of that. On a project that we've had recently, we had a really nice, what we thought was a really nice procedure for managing openings, which is always a problem in our projects. So we had a very rigid procedure. You would have to model your opening, make sure it was checked and numbered, and it would go to a list, and it would be checked by the person creating the opening, etc., etc. Lots of steps in it. And on paper, that looked like a really good process. It was really concise. There was lots of accountability. Everybody, knew what they had to do. But I got a call from the construction manager one day, and he said, David, I'm standing here with the contractor who wants to create the opening. I'm standing here with the contractor who built the wall and who owns that creating that opening. I'm here, I can see in the model this is perfect, it's fine. And yet we can't cut the opening because you haven't, as a BIM team, haven't approved it. And what he said simply to me, that process is broken. So what we had to do was change that process, streamline it, and make it better. So setting rigid standards and focusing on the wrong areas of model development, sometimes that doesn't allow for the flexibility that's needed during construction. So the BIM model is always central to what we do. Uh, it's essential, portal for all information, but it needs to be structured and governed in the right way, and a practical approach that aids construction. We can't get in the way of construction. We need to aid it. So my first message for everyone is keep it simple if you can. Life is complicated enough without overcomplicating. The next thing I want to talk about is coordination. The physical coordination. So understanding what we're trying to achieve with physical coordination is really important. It often gets forgotten about. We talk a lot about information management and the flow of information, but really physical coordination is still a key part. Clash detection alone is not coordination. It's the solutions and the practical and collaborative approach from project teams solving clashes. That's the real point of coordination. Somebody simply pointing out that there's 10,000 clashes in a report, that doesn't help us. That doesn't solve any issues. We prefer to focus on the real issues causing the clashes. What's the reason behind this rather than the overall number. Things like access requirements. Those are specific issues that you've got to address, and they can be difficult to find with an automatic clash detection. Also, we need to know when to stop modeling. So a model freeze during construction. This is a vital part of the coordination process from our view. A coordinated section of the model must be available in an area before construction begins. That means we must focus our project team on specific areas in line with project schedule. That means you finish that area, you stop modeling. That's the key part. You stop modeling, it's finished. You freeze it, nobody can change it then. Once all the issues are dealt with, that part, that area in that model is frozen. And that gives the construction teams the confidence to construct in that area, with certainty that the model is right before we begin. We shouldn't build anything unless there's a freeze in a particular area. That's our approach. So the coordination process is really, really important, and getting to grips with that, and can't be forgotten about. The next topic I'd like to talk about is the standards, and loads of people have talked about standards today, and they've got really, really interesting points on the standards. My main message here is to make sure that you consider your standard, whatever it is. You might be following ISO 19650, you might be following specific client standards. In Excite, we work with many different regions, many global clients, so we experience a lot of different standards. So it's vital before you start a project that you specify what standards you're going to use. Some clients will, don't have any standards at all, and that can be a challenge because you've got to, default to your own standard then, or you implement an industry standard. Some clients have very extensive standards then, on the other hand. You got to familiarize yourself with those and understand the impact that has on your workflows and your current procedures. Then, depending where you're working, what region you're in, it's different industry standards may apply. They need to be taken into account, and how does that affect the scope and what you're doing. And then all of that, of course, gets recorded in your BIM execution plan, and that's a vital document. I mean, we can't stress highly enough how important that document is. But this allows, this contains all the information that people need. It allows the client to see what will be handed over. It governs how the information is going to be formatted and managed. And ultimately for us, it dictates the scope for all parties involved. And that's a really important thing because I'm going to talk about scope in the next slide, but scope is really important. And if I go to the next slide, one of the biggest things we see that is a problem, in executing any project, but specifically in BIM, is the scope gaps. So the this is one of the biggest challenges we regularly face. Understanding the capability of your supply chain and making sure that BIM scope is very clear and concise. That's going to help you later on when issues occur. Subcontractors or vendors who are appointed without a clear BIM scope, or the correct BIM execution plan in some cases, will need support during construction. Those guys always need support during construction. That takes away from, the coordination that you could be doing with other subcontractors. That takes away resources from us to help them to make sure that the process flows. So understanding where those scope gaps are and trying to mitigate and avoid them at the beginning is really key. And I've written here, commercial awareness as a BIM manager is a really important thing, because when we're appointing subcontractors and we're evaluating their tender returns, the BIM capability must also be considered, and sometimes it gets overlooked. And I think previous speakers have talked about that the QSs, they see BIM but they're not sure what the scope should be. So attendance at those tender clarification meetings from a BIM manager or someone who's confident knowing what BIM is about, that's really important for us. And we found that sometimes subcontractors will try and exclude certain things from any tender clarification meetings, and BIM tends to be one of those things sometimes. So depending on the region that you're in, and there's differences in scope and how different countries and contractors execute their projects. The last thing you want to hear is, oh, that's not in our scope, or we're not contracted to do a model, because that's, from personal experience, that's really frustrating, and that's going to be a world of pain for you ahead in a project. So a couple of simple things. In summary, my key points are, keep your processes simple and clear, and try and add value rather than complication. That's important. Don't forget to focus on the physical coordination, because it's still a really, really key part. Understand and define your standards early. That's, you've got to understand what your client wants, and then if that's unclear, or it's, there's no standard, you've got to understand what adds value for you as a project. And then commercial awareness is really, really important, getting rid of the scope gaps if you can, and then understanding where they are so that somebody can fill them. And then the last key message I'll leave you with is, don't be afraid to start. All the softwares and standards and processes can be very confusing, but don't allow that to stop you moving forward. Just get in there, get started, start executing projects. The more projects that you do, the better you'll get, and the more understanding you'll have. So those are my key messages. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. If anyone wants to contact me, my details are on the next slide here. My LinkedIn profile's in the description too. And have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Excellent. So Georgina is going to speak to us about her work at ACB, and Georgina has done some amazing things with the company over the last couple of years, and is driving forward with a very interesting approach to digital construction. So we'll hand over to Georgina live from Dubai, and hopefully she doesn't drop the connection. It's all yours, Georgina.
Thank you, Ronan, and I like the word amazing. That's great. So we are delivering differently better. We're a specialist contractor. My name's Georgina Quigley, and I'm the CEO with Acb Group. I come from IT, information technology. I spent 15 years prior to joining ACB working in information technology in the construction sector, but more in the manufacturing side. So I am truly madly digital. We are specialist contracting, and we are the link between the virtual world and the physical building. So the digital building becomes the physical building, and we are the in-between. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about context and what do ACB do. I'm going to talk to you about perspective, so technology adoption and the multi-level perspective and technology diffusion curves. And then I'm going to talk about BIM as a game changer for specialist contractors like ACB, and then a little bit to wrap up on the value of BIM for ACB. So who are we? Acb Group, with head office in Ireland, have been delivering critical infrastructure projects for more than 18 years. I know I don't look it. We deliver a one-stop solution for external envelope construction, and that includes design coordination, technical detailing, scheduling and procurement, and install of roofing, cladding, doors, louvers and curtain walling. So basically anything on the external envelope of the building wrap. And by combining BIM workflows with manufacturing, design and innovation, we give our customers a single source of ownership and responsibility for your building envelope. And Acb Group take the risk out of projects through good building information. management. Just like I said, for a little bit of perspective on the construction industry and technology adoption, and I recently completed my MBA, and I would have, like many of you BIM heroes out there, been very frustrated thinking this is a no-brainer. Why are we so slow to adapt to these new innovative technologies? And this multi-level perspective from Giles and Schott really gave me a calming feeling to think, you know, this is really macro. We really need that landscape pressure, that broader political, economic pressure to create that window of opportunity, to break through the existing regime and create a window of opportunity for the niche innovations that are the BIM technologies to break through. So that landscape pressure, in my opinion, we feel that is now. So with COVID, with the labour shortages, with supply chain volatility, the sustainability crisis, the productivity crisis that we have in construction, and our growing and ageing population, we believe that landscape pressure is now, and the window of opportunity in cracking through that existing regime. The existing regime that's heavily embedded, you know, they've got the scale advantages, equipment, you've got vested interest, core capabilities, even lending, you know, and investors prefer the status quo. It's difficult to invest in the new and the innovative. And so we believe that window of opportunity is now for BIM and for BIM technologies. And just to further that perspective, technology adoption and the diffusion curve, we, the early adopters, the technology enthusiasts, we need to be aware that we're the early market. And in order to go to the mainstream market, we need to make sure that the full suite of training, and we heard our university speaking earlier, the training, the support services in terms of the standards, etc., will need to be in place before there is a full transition. We need to have a proven solution and demonstrate tangible value. And this is a Geoffrey Moore model for taking product to mainstream markets. So I suppose it's just for us to settle and be aware that we need to have a proven and be able to demonstrate value to our clients. In terms of BIM, the game changer for specialist contracting, why would a specialist contractor, that subcontractor that Angie referred to earlier, that the QS has awarded the package and all of a sudden they're told that they need something to do with BIM. So why would we invest so much time and energy and capital in this BIM dream? And the reason is that it is a game changer for the specialist contractor. We can actually get control of our time, so we can be less time on site and we can reduce our rework. So we can get things right the first time because we can visualize it inside of a data model. We can get control of our costs. The digital twin gives us cost certainty. Remember, the specialist contractor, we buy all of the materials, so we schedule, we procure, we do just-in-time delivery, and we install all of these materials. So every nut and every bolt, we procure them and buy them, and we don't have an opportunity to get that wrong. We must get it right first time. And so that control of cost, being able again to take our quantities out of the digital model is an amazing breakthrough for our business. Control of quality, we have the right product information at the right time, it's searchable, it's available. That allows us then to look earlier in the cycle for prefabrication opportunities and for offsite manufacturing opportunities. Control of safety, the visual building representation, the virtual walkthrough of the building. We can look at potential risks and hazards and mitigate these before we go to site. And the last two are very important and significant for our business. We can attract talent. People want to be involved with new technology and modern methods of construction, the exciting, the new, the innovative. We have been able to attract the best minds in the industry to our business because we are technologically savvy, because we are interested in BIM and we are interested in delivering differently better. And finally, scale. It will allow our business to scale. So we can reuse our data, we can model families once and reuse them many, many times. So that will give us the opportunity to scale. And I just have some results and some stats from inside of our business to remember this is inside of ACB's business. So 30% faster, 33% savings on project costs. Our build quality is 50% higher quality, 50% greater flexibility in terms of change management. And we're 25% safer, and that allows us again to scale, to do more with less. BIM is for everyone, and we've heard that a few times, a win-win solution. So this is just again to give you a bit of a flavour of who and why. The wins for the contractor, as we talked about, cost certainty, programme certainty, that transparency. We can see in terms of collaboration, we can collaborate in fire protection, structural steel with the mech and elect teams, curtain walling, In terms of sustainability, there's a massive opportunity for sustainability. We can do iteration, what if testing on air tightness, solar shading, thermal performance. These are just some of the wins and some of the opportunities that are out there that we're realising. Design optimization, that rapid iteration. So again, just to be aware that this is a win for everybody. For ACB, it's really, and I'm sure many of you have seen this Macalemia Curve, and again, it's really valuable, and I remind myself, I look at this very often, and we had Peter from GCU saying keep it simple, and this is really a simple model to show the value of BIM, and the earlier that we can get engaged with BIM, us, the specialist contractor, that we can get engaged, the less the cost of change. So you see, as you move down the project stages, that the cost of change goes up. That's on the red line. So if we can get involved at stage 2, concept design, we can do design iterations, visualization, project budgets, programs, augmented reality, and really impact the project outcome when the cost to change is at its least. So this Macalemia Curve is just a really simple, valuable to show how BIM can reduce the cost of delivery. And for specialist contractors to get involved earlier, we have a lot of value to add. Just to wrap up, specialist contractors are the biggest winners in this new wave of technologies, including BIM. And I know that it's a massive investment. We've been through it. We got involved in this back in 2017, but we are the greatest winners, because remember, we are the ones that have to buy all the material and do all of the labour install. So BIM allowed us to take ownership for the full external envelope scope. BIM facilitates construction innovation, so design for manufacture and assembly, offsite manufacturing, prefabrication and modularisation, and we've recently developed a facility for this very purpose. BIM facilitates our own manufacture of building finishes, so that last 10% of building finishes that can often be very, very difficult. BIM in-house at ACB, we own the BIM team in-house. We have our own designers, our BIM information managers, and this allows us to own the processes and workflows. So there's no information translation to third parties, no data leakage, one data model for your entire external envelope, a one-stop solution for the building wrap. This is just a quick view of what it looks like, what is an external envelope, and I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this. But again, where the virtual world meets the physical world, and then this is what a digital twin looks like for ACB. This is where we take our schedules from. And just to wrap up, this is ACB in CAV, and this is our Innovation Hub, where we are researching, developing and innovating modern methods of construction, prefabricating off-site modules to ship to largely our data center sites globally. And if you would like to learn more, please scan the QR code. We'd love to show you more on our website, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Ronan.
Excellent. So we have got some questions, and we have got nearly 800 people on the call. So if you have got questions, please put them into the Q&A session, and I will get to as many questions as I can. First question goes to you, Andy. One of the guests has said that they've seen companies where the BIM lead and the design engineer don't get along. In your experience, we've all seen that. In your experience, how do you get the different functions to actually come on the same page, bearing in mind that this is a team sport and information management is not the beholden of the BIM manager? How have you dealt with this in the past?
That's a really good question, and I guess it's a constant challenge, isn't it, as we go? And I think, yeah, but as I talked about winding back a few years when I was at the sharp end, you ended up supporting projects where there was a bit of a perfect storm, and you've got a really engaged team around you, typically. Whether that's the design manager in our case, or project manager, whoever. The thing that became really clear to me quite early on was it's project leadership have to support this. If the project lead, they don't have to necessarily get it or get the detail, but if they can just keep banging the drum, and when there's meetings with the design team, the supply chain, on the agenda is information management, BIM, digital, whatever you want to call it, and it's continually, this is important, we have to continue doing this, banging the drum. That often made the difference for me for whether the wheels came off as the project got under pressure and people become more busy and stressed, and the first thing that goes is, oh Christ, we were doing this like cool stuff over here using data that was going to give us some benefit, but let's just go back to how we were always doing it. So I think I do see it change. And again, I'm not at the sharp end these days. So I'm not directly on projects, unfortunately. But talking to my team, I think there is definitely a change, and I think it's just a slow process, isn't it? It's all about adoption, and the more good news stories that get back to start your colleagues, your staff, the more people get interested. And I think I feel like there's mostly an acceptance that we just need to get on with it, and people are getting more interested. But there's no magic answer. I think project leadership have to support it. Be firm and sure about your conviction and what we're trying to do, but don't fall out and lose people, because you just have to sort of let people get on with it and target those that are interested, I guess.
Yeah, and I would add to that in another way as well, is that sometimes where I've seen that fractious thing kicking off is that some of the people that are been around for a long time think they've got an idea that they should be pushing hard, and they kick off in the wrong way. So it's very important that the guys who are in the space of BIM coordinators or BIM managers, who may have spent 5, 10, in my case, more than 20 years looking at things like Navisworks and other tools, that they figure out what the engineer's problem is that they're trying to address, and give them tools that can help them address that issue. So it could be that the BIM, very often the BIM process flags up shortcomings in engineering design or construction planning, and it's important that you understand where those shortcomings are coming from and how you can help fix them, and not just point the finger and saying this doesn't work. What? So yeah, so it is a team sport. Georgina, there's a question here, and it's a bit long-winded, so bear with me, and you may be able to comment on it. It talks about how the appointed parties are very often asked to price BIM as part of their package. I'm not sure how often you've been asked to price BIM for the kind of work that you do, but very frequently the information that's used for pricing doesn't include an execution plan, a program of works, a level of development requirement, and further, many times there's no definition of what's actually required, particularly from specialists around the level of development, the level of information in relation to specific work. So for example, in your case, the envelope. Do you have any suggestions on how this can be overcome to allow specialists like small contractors to enable and support BIM delivery? What's been your experience about understanding what the client actually wants and then giving them value? What's been your approach?
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Ronan. It's often very difficult. The specialist contractor rarely gets a BEP, a BIM execution plan. So how we've overcome that is that we present a BEP to our client to say this is the level of detail that we will deliver at. These are the BIM deliverables that we will give. So that's how we've managed it. We've gone back with a BEP. Now, the reason that we do BIM within our organisation is so that we can deliver better within our organisation. So we have to remember, procure all of the materials. So we schedule, detail all of the materials, and the idea is through our detailing and creating of our families and objects, we can create leverage out of that. So we go for the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time the external envelope is largely the same. So we intend to create leverage out of our data, so we can deliver faster. What value do we give to our client? Well, we're less time on site. We deliver it right first time. And we make sure that we can get our products on site just in time for just-in-time delivery. So we prescribe our BEP back up the line and ask the client to collaborate on that.
Great, thanks, Georgina. David, you seem to be having a connection problem. Are you there now? Can we ask you a question, David?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to throw you one completely out of left field from a gentleman.
Cool.
I think it's a gentleman's name, Ivo. Do you use point clouds to produce digital twins? And as in a new construction project, do you make scans during construction to build a digital twin? And on that, just adding one of my own to that question, what do you believe is the value of a digital twin in your business at Excite? What do you see as the added value of digital twins?
Well, so like the point clouds, it's very complex. Like point clouds are huge amounts of data, and we always scan. There's always a scan at some stage, but I don't really believe in scanning the building every week and reporting progress on that. It can take a long time to scan the scale of project that we have. So really it goes back to what the client requirements are. We work with a lot of clients. We work in a lot of different regions. We sometimes we follow ISO 19650. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we've got clients with very specific standards. Sometimes we've got clients that have no standards at all. So it really depends. We don't tend to deliver a digital twin unless we're asked to do it. I don't think I've been asked to do it so far, because we need to tailor our scope to exactly what we're doing. And our focus is construction. Our focus is design and construction and delivering what our clients want. So understanding that early in the process is key for us as part of the presentation that you missed. But you know, like making sure that you're delivering what you need to and what the client requires and what's actually useful for the client. A massive scan of their building at the end, if they're not going to use it, they don't have the capability, that's not wonderfully useful for them. You know, we do that to as-build our own models, to our contractor models, etc. But you know, we do it where appropriate, if that makes sense, Ronan.
Yeah, so there's this follow-on question from Philip, which is basically saying, without the scanning on a weekly basis, how do you validate the as-built model if you are going to provide a digital twin? So I think there is a challenge in this, the concept of what is a digital twin. So my experience is that laser scanning is actually overkill. And what you're actually trying to do with digital twin is provide a model that is connected to the data set that you're trying to use in the digital twin process. So you've got to be careful in terms of specifying what is a digital twin. And if you're trying to provide an as-built model and that's been scanned and verified, and you may need to scan on a more frequent basis, but I would agree with David that a weekly scan can be onerous, particularly in a large-scale project. So it's a hot topic we could discuss for the rest of the afternoon. But I do want to go back to another question which I've just seen, and this is for Andy. It's a three-part question, but I'm just going to take the first part because I think it's quite interesting. In terms of the ISO, the deliveries team's capacity and capability, their mobilization plan and their risk register are all part of a pre-appointment BEP, or should they be delivered as individual documents? What's your take on how people actually supply the kind of responses to tender? What's your recommendation, or what's your thoughts on that?
That's a really good one, and we pondered exactly that when we were developing our 9650 resources. So I don't think it matters, is my honest answer. It's how it best you feel it's going to work as a tool, or as tools on your project in your organisation. We've kept them separate, so we have a pre-appointment BIM execution plan. What were the other? The capability and capacity summary would be driven by our assessment of our designers and supply chain, and we'd roll that up into a summary. We actually, in Kier, we've had the traditional send out a questionnaire, via email, get a response, score it in an Excel table, and that gives a score. We've moved to building an online solution, so it's a database where we can, look across the board, and it's nice, and it's a lot more user-friendly experience for our supply chain to actually complete the assessments. But we'd take a summary out of that, so that would be separate, but it would probably be an appendix to the BIM execution plan as part of your tender response. Remind me of the other resource mentioned. Sorry, Ronan.
They have the mobilization plan and risk register as part of the pre-appointment.
So that's a really good one. So exactly that. So we struggle with that. So we've got a separate mobilization plan, albeit it's quite a succinct tool. It just puts out, this is the plan of how we're going to mobilize the tech, the people, and test the resources, but then it's important that you revisit that when you do start to mobilize and go, right, how are we going to do this, or let's carry it out. You could have it as part of the BEP, but we've got it as a separate resource. Specifically the risk register, we didn't create anything on that, because every project has a risk register typically. There's already a process in place, so actually let's just add to the information risk to that project register. And it's the same when you look at developing information requirements as a lead appointed party. We don't want to create a siloed thing for digital BIM information requirements. We've already been asking for many years. We need these type of drawings, these type of details, and it's trying to I guess develop and connect into existing resources and processes, rather than just create a funnel of new stuff that's all 9650 that doesn't relate to the stuff the rest of the business does. And it's a really hard challenge, actually. I think we've kind of got to a point where it's it works. It's not where we probably want to end up, but it's a pretty good thing, and we're trying to
going.
So, but the simple answer is I don't think it really matters whether they're separate or all in one resource with appendices,
as long as you provide the information. So we've got 3 minutes left, and I've got one generic question which I'm going to put to the three speakers, and we'll have ladies first. Georgina, I'll get you to kick it off, because I think you've probably got one of the more inspirational stories around this. How important is talent development, talent acquisition, the people in our businesses? How important is that over and above the processes and technology in terms of building up their skills, building up their knowledge? How have you dealt with that in ACB in terms of training up the people that have maybe 10, 15, 20 years of experience doing it another way? How have you managed that staff development process? And I'll ask the same question to the other two when you're done.
You know, Ronan, it's been really challenging, actually, that change. And that's why I was particularly interested in the MLP, the multi-level perspective, and also the diffusion, and to be aware that we are early adopters and we are enthusiasts. And it's very hard to sell that to people who are pragmatists. So honestly, what we've done is we've aligned ourselves with those enthusiasts, and we have done a big drive to attract talent that think and that are enthusiastic about technology, about the change in construction, about the digital transition. We've been in transition since 2017, and if I'm totally honest, we've lost some excellent people from our design, from our business, who just weren't able to make the transition to digital technologies, and that's fair and that's fine. And I think that's where I found that whole transition to try and understand that you need to align yourself with early adopters and be very aware that on the other side of the chasm there are pragmatists, and you must be able to prove demonstrable value to these people, which is difficult in BIM because it's really intangible value at the minute, because it's so early. We're really at the tip of the iceberg, so it's a really difficult message to tell people who are not already converted. So you'll find that a lot of the enthusiasts, the heroes, are already converted people, and it's difficult. So we have really attracted the best minds in the industry, and honestly, Ronan, they're people who are like ourselves, who are interested in technology. So yeah, we've lost some really good people. So we have invested very significantly in training ArcDocs. We've done some nice training with ArcDocs. We are Enterprise Ireland clients, and they've really supported us to develop our team. So we haven't gone it alone, but it hasn't been easy.
It definitely takes help. So David, just from your perspective, how have you gone about training and development and opening up people's eyes to these technologies?
You see, so Ronan, like it's been difficult with people who've been doing construction projects for 20, 25 years. And changing their mindset is a very difficult thing to do. Making like a model central to their way of thinking is a challenge. But honestly, how we've gone about it, we've trained, we've kind of chipped away at their mindset a little bit. And some of the greatest success stories we have is people who would not look at the model at the beginning, wouldn't engage with it, thought it was just an extra add-on. We've converted some of those people now to rely on the model. Their first question is that modeled? Is that correct? Is the information there? Has the contractor done what they were supposed to do with scope, etc.? And really, it's just going out and doing it. It's making sure you've got your plans there, making sure that everybody your construction managers, they see the value of it. It doesn't happen overnight. It's taken years, and there's still probably some I still need to convert. So,
and Andy, we'll get you to respond last, and then we'll wrap up the session before the break. What's been the uptick and approach in Kier regards people skills development?
Yeah, crucial part of the puzzle, and the people are the most important piece of all of this, as the guys have said. So. Yeah, absolutely. The focus on training, upskilling, competence, and I think a lot of the time we get frustrated as BIM specialists. If you just take a step back a minute and think, I'm banging my head saying QS, you should be doing that. Design manager should be doing it. Have we actually properly upskilled them and trained them to do that task? And probably the answer is no some of the times, and because we can't do it. So yeah, there's definitely a drive in Kier to focus on that piece, and we have to attract and retain talent and support our staff, don't we, to come with us on the journey, I guess.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so on behalf of the organisers, I would like to thank all of you for participating. Great presentations, David. Apologies again that we had to abandon your presentation, but as suggest you, if you can record it using PowerPoint, you can get it to Ralph and the guys, and they can get that on YouTube where people can see it. I've enjoyed the Q&A. I've enjoyed meeting you guys. So I think that's for now. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. Thank you. Maybe Ralph.
Thanks everyone.
We're going to go on a break.
Cheers.
So we'll have a half an hour break, and then we have our keynote address from Paul Doherty. So if everyone wants to go get a drink or whatever, and we'll see you in half an hour.